Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Last week on my YouTube channel, a commenter said, "The one thing that I hate more than pornography are these anti-porn cults." The assumption was that because I was speaking out about ending one's addiction to pornography, I was part of some sort of anti-pornography cult. I don't actually blame them for thinking that way. A lot of, let's call them influencers and others who have started speaking up about pornography are doing it in a very impassioned way where they are speaking out against pornography. It's very black and white thinking. Yesterday, I had a welcome call with a client in the intensive program who was going to be working with me one-on-one. And I asked him, well, why did you choose to work with us? Because now there are so many people who are speaking about pornography. And this brother is a Christian, a devout Christian, I believe. It's like there's so many people, there's so many Christian pastors that have porn addiction recovery programs, and you'd be in a place where it's your religion and it's your dogma and you'd be more comfortable. And he said, I'd followed you for a while on YouTube, JK, and he's like, unlike other people, you go very deep into this. You don't do anything else. You're not moralizing. You're not doing anything. You're not bringing up shame. I didn't feel any shame. I didn't feel bad. He's like, year after year, you just talk about pornography, and I've watched you get deeper and deeper into it. I'm not saying this to share how great I am or anything like that. I'm sharing this to say that people assume that we are anti-pornography because of the depth we go into while talking about pornography. It's very easy to assume that, man, this guy is obsessed with the whole porn addiction thing. He must really hate it. So today, I'm going to surprise you. I might surprise you anyway. Some of you already know the answer to this. But I'm going to be answering the question, am I anti-pornography? Before I do that, though, I'd like to take this opportunity to raise some awareness on some of the things that are currently happening in the world when it comes to the spread of pornography. Can we realistically completely end the existence of pornography? I think not. Pornography has been around since the dawn of man. We have sex to procreate. It is a pleasurable experience. We have been drawing it on cave paintings. There are excavations that show volumes and volumes of drawings and writings about sex and sexual pleasure. It's been around. It's going to be around. It's absolutely unrealistic to think that we're going to stamp out something that is so connected to an integral part of what makes us human, which is sex. Sex is what brought you onto this planet, or rather it was part of the process. What I am against is compulsive behavior. What I am against is a lack of regulation of high-speed internet pornography. Understand that the rate of addictive behavior was never close to what it is today until the advent of high-speed internet pornography. Once it was on the internet, it was already a problem. But once the tube sites came around, 2006, the advent of YouTube, this was when everything took off. The porn industry realized that they could use the same medium and the same marketing style of YouTube to get their message across. Of course, when I say their message, I mean, to make money. That's what they're trying to do. That's all they are. They are a for-profit industry, and they are a very successful industry. They realized that instead of charging everybody up front to watch the videos, they could just give them snippets of it up front, and eventually they would have people who were addicted enough that they would pay for whatever they thought their preference was. This means that when you view all those little snippets of pornography, 3 minutes, 50 seconds, whatever they may be, and you eventually find something that you think is your jam, you're like, oh man, I really like this. I really like this actress. I really like the intensity of this sexual act. You're more willing to pay. You might be listening to this and going like, I don't pay, because the vast majority of men actually don't pay. But there are enough that pay to the point that the porn industry makes billions of dollars. So while you may not be one of those that pay, it does not mean you are not addicted. All it means is that you got to the point of being addicted before you got to the point of being able to pay. So their marketing mechanism already reeled you in and got you hooked. You're just not a customer who's going to pay. You're just one of the guys who's going to use the freebies. But your behavior is now changed. For some of you, this change might be permanent. This might last the rest of your life. There are a lot of men out there who are completely unaware that they are addicted to pornography because they've never come across anything that educated them otherwise. In fact, this brother that I was speaking to yesterday, he actually said that he'd been acting out for so long that it wasn't until he found some advocacy groups that were actually anti-pornography and he started listening to them that he realized that many of the symptoms that he was experiencing in his life, inability to get erections, constant fatigue, depression, lack of attraction to his spouse, all these different things were symptoms of pornography. I'm also against what I believe to be a deliberate attempt, and this is a strong word I'm going to use, a deliberate attempt to enslave people with pornography. Do you know that if you are on Instagram or TikTok, and even if you do not view lewd material, even if you don't look at women in bikinis or anything like that, based on how you use the algorithm, both of these social media platforms will be able to determine whether you are male or female, just based on your behaviors. And they will shortly begin to serve you with material which is borderline pornographic. Why would they do that? Well, they do that because they're taking their cues and learning their lessons from the pornography industry. They look at parallel industries and they say, well, what's habit forming? Well, pornography is habit forming. Everybody now follows the porn industry's lead. The porn industry is the leader when it comes to marketing innovations because they have the greatest access to human behavioral data. Men are spending, and women are spending, and children too, are spending so much time on these sites in a heightened state of arousal. They are spending time in an emotional state. No one's logical on a porn site. This is a marketer's dream. Somebody who is emotional, not logical, and based on that, they study you over and over again. They innovate with their products. They improve it. They're constantly iterating. And as such, they grow and grow as an industry. They gain influence and are able to buy off other industries, advertise covertly in other industries, because money will do that and it will corrupt. So these mainstream social media platforms realize that, hey, we've got to go the route of the porn industry or else they will take over everything. So they start throwing in sexualized images. Understand that they have no interest, absolutely no interest in what happens to society. If they are a publicly listed company, their only loyalty is to their shareholders. And the shareholders' only interest is to make money. That's it. They don't care about society. That's how this works. I read an article that's up right now in the news because it came out 3 days ago about an Amazonian tribe that recently was gifted with Starlink. I think it's the high-speed or ultra-high-speed internet from Elon Musk's Starlink company. In a very short period of time, the entire male population of the tribe was addicted to pornography. In fact, let me pull this up. I'm going to read an excerpt of the article. Elon Musk's Starlink brings internet to Amazon tribe isolated for 1,000 years. Now, they face a porn addiction. June 6th, 2024. So it says, in the dense Amazon rainforest, the remote Marubo tribe has preserved its unique culture and language for millennia. However, a technological marvel, Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service, has recently breached their isolation. This connection to the outside world brings both opportunities and challenges to the tribe. The Marubos, a 2,000-member tribe, connected with the world through the internet for the first time last September when Starlink launched its services in Brazil. And billionaire Elon Musk Starlink aimed to provide internet to remote locations. Now, listen to this. When it arrived, everyone was happy, said 73-year-old Sainama Marubo to the New York Times. The internet has brought clear benefits, including video chats with faraway loved ones and emergency calls for help. But now things have gotten worse, she added. The tribe faces a fundamental dilemma regarding the internet's use and its impact on their culture. Young people have gotten lazy because of the internet. They are learning the ways of the white people. Despite this, she pleaded, but please don't take our internet away. Their youth are now frequently on their phones, chatting with friends glued to screens and accessing inappropriate material. Alfredo Marubo, leader of the Marubo Association of Villages, says he's particularly troubled by the spread of pornography. We're worried young people are going to want to try it, he said, noting that some leaders observed more aggressive sexual behavior among young men. Let's see what else they said. Yeah, that's where it ended. There are more detailed articles about this. But there you have it. This entire tribe's culture is going to be permanently altered, probably decimated by the things that they're viewing. Because all the young people are going to want to leave and get engaged in all of these things. And I think it's very sad because these are one of the last places on the planet that still hold on to some of the very things that make us culturally human, our roots, which we are increasingly forgetting. And you're not going to really learn them accurately through history. Why? Because history is only written by the victors. The victors will write history in order to make themselves look good so that they can remain in power. So let me make it clear. I am not against pornography. I'll say it again. I am not against pornography. Pornography, though, in its current form, high-speed, unregulated pornography, is dangerous, and I am absolutely against that. Now, you might start thinking, JK, what the heck? You say that this had such a negative impact on your life. Why wouldn't you be against it? I'll admit, early on, when I was ending my behavior, about the middle stage of my reboots, I hated pornography. I hated it so much. I pushed it away. I suppressed it. I didn't want to see it. But then I realized that there was a negative consequence to that because I was suppressing a part of myself. I'm not saying I was suppressing pornography. It means that I was living in denial as to what pornography had done for me, as to why I chose pornography in the first place. I chose pornography in the first place because I did not have anything else to replace it with. See, you might be wondering, well, why is it that there are some people around me who don't seem to be addicted to pornography? They actually seem to enjoy it. In fact, it seems to be enriching to their lives. What has likely happened in those people's case is that they had access to the appropriate coping strategies, by chance or otherwise. So, when they came across pornography, they weren't using it to feel better about anything else. They weren't using it to medicate stress. They weren't using it to feel better about a strong emotion. They weren't using it to cover up any sort of trauma. They saw it for what it was. They saw it as something where they're like, okay, cool. Like if I feel sexually aroused, I don't have access to sex. This is a way that I can achieve orgasm, which is pleasurable to me. They were less likely to get addicted. I want to make this clear. I'm simplifying something that is complex. So I'm generalizing here. But this is just to help you answer that question if you ever wonder as you go through your reboot, why is it that some people are not addicted? Those people who are the vast majority of people on the planet, it's not a big deal for them. Some of them saw it. My girlfriend is one person. She saw pornography when she was, I guess, maybe 13 or 14 years old when, group of cousins all played it together. And she just thought it was super weird. Then she saw it again later on, and she's always thought it was super weird to just watch people having sex. So it's just not her thing. So till today, she thinks that anything that is beyond a very light sex scene in a movie or a series, she's like, if they start showing all the thrusting and the showing boobs and everything, she just thinks is over the top, which I personally think is healthy. So that's an example. But then you have other people who are, once in a while I'll watch pornography, or once in a while I'll watch pornography with my partner. There are people who are like that. So it's very easy for us to look at our experience and then decide that our experience and the thing that makes us feel better, or the thing that keeps us away from depression and from pain and from other sorts of emotional turmoil, should be the same solution for other people out there. I've not been a fan of that. I never liked it when people who had experienced a deep spiritual experience, such as Christians being saved, would come to me and then would preach to me. And when I did not accept it, they would then threaten me. They would say things such as, aren't you afraid of eternal damnation and burning in hellfire forever? It's like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, if you don't accept Christ, that is your lot. That's what's going to happen to you. And I started wondering, I was like, what kind of coercion is this? Like, why would, I don't mean to get religious, but I'll take that detour for a short moment. Why would a loving and caring deity, not a man, be worried about punishing? And why would it be so specific? That very much sounds like a humanized deity who gets angry, like the God of the Old Testament. Very different from what you hear in the New Testament. There's a lot more love, compassion, and forgiveness in the New Testament than there is in the Old Testament. But also the Old Testament was in a very primitive time. And things were more black and white in the Old Testament than they were in the New Testament, which was a completely different civilization. But I digress. I did not like it when anything was forced on me. And so as I began to go through the late stage of my reboot and the maintenance stage, the only way I got there was by acknowledging the role that pornography had played in my life. And the same is likely true for you. There are many people who are following a 12-step methodology or a traditional therapeutic methodology who are doing the day-by-day thing. They're just like, it's one day at a time. It's one day at a time. One day. Why is it one day at a time? Why are they counting? Why is it that if they slip or relapse, they have to start from the beginning and then they're not truly free from this behavior? Why is that the case? That is the case because they were trained to look at pornography as a bad thing. They were trained in an old and outdated model. Look at alcohol, look at substances as something bad and negative. And what it does to you is bad and negative. But that method was not updated for pornography, where the drug itself is not pornography. The drug is within you. You are releasing the opiates. The opiates are the endorphins that are released during orgasm. It is not dopamine that is being released during orgasm. Dopamine is a precursor to something pleasurable. It is present at certain points in the process, which is why this is called a process addiction. But at the end of the day, what is released when you orgasm are endorphins, which are opiates. So that method does not work. So when you keep denying it, you keep denying, like porn is bad, I can't look at it. You're never going to look at that which you deny. And at Porn Reboot, we encourage you, look at pornography. It's not the enemy. I was at a mastermind event for CEOs in Nashville a few weeks back. And the gentleman who sat next to me asked me what I did. And I told him. And he was very quiet. And then he confided in me that his son was actually at an inpatient treatment facility to deal with pornography addiction. And he looked at me and he said, "It truly is every man's battle." I couldn't resist. I said, no, it is not a battle. It is not a battle. If you view this as a battle to win, then you've already lost. You are battling your, as Christians would call it, your lust your temptation. You're battling a biological urge that will always be a part of you as long as you got balls dangling between your legs. How do you go about rejecting that which you were born with, that which God gave you, that which Mother Nature dictated you have? It is a natural law. It cannot be denied without you facing a severe consequence. Again, pornography is only the symptom of something else. And in order for you to understand it as the symptom of something else, you must be able to look at it squarely and also look at your behavior. Porn was never the problem for porn addicts and for sex addicts until high-speed internet pornography came about. And then everything changed. I'm looking at the time, and I've been going off for a moment. So I'm going to round this up with, who would watch pornography? Like, are there reasons where pornography use is justified? It's not my place to tell somebody whether they should watch pornography or not. And I have never done this in my life. Never. Not even while I was addicted to pornography and was unaware. Never. But I became mature enough as I entered into my late and maintenance stage of my reboot that I looked at pornography and I began to look at myself, and I realized that my porn use started as a way of something within me trying to protect me. It actually started out of love. It started out of self-preservation in a positive way. I had very strong emotions. There were things that were happening to me. And pornography went from something that I was just enjoying as a teenager. It quickly became something that became a replacement for any sort of communication, coping strategy for dealing with adversity. That was the only way that which was within me knew how to deal with it. Now, what does this mean? It means for those of you who are more religious, it also means that there is hope. So some might listen and go like, man, you are not a spiritual guy. I am. You can use contemplation, prayer, deep meditation. All of these things can become the coping strategies that you use, but you must understand how to use them. We have many Christians, Muslims, and individuals from different faiths. We have pastors who are currently being licensed to use the porn reboot system and trained. So we have individuals who come in and learn the foundation of the program, which is very much scientific and rational, and then they apply it to their beliefs because it's based on science. It's based on natural law. So once I had accepted this, I was able to thank pornography for what it had done for me. I was able to forgive myself. I realized it wasn't my fault. I was young. I did not know any better. And the only people and the only message that was being told to me about being better was they were trying to coerce me. If you're lustful, if you watch this type of material, you're going to hell. That was where the seed of not being religious was planted for me. I pray to God. I meditate. I have a personal relationship with the universe, with God. But I am not religious. I do not go to church, and I participate in no organized religion. Why? Because it is by man. And it was man in the past too that I sought help from, but all it did was increase my shame and my fear. And I'm not angry either. I understand the ignorance there. While that approach might work for other aspects of life, it does not work for people who are struggling with sexually compulsive disorders. And the porn reboot system became non-judgmental. There are no threats. There's the reality. We'll tell you the reality, and you can perceive it whichever way you want to. Hey, so will I be free from pornography if I do XYZ? If you're not going to put in the work to rewire your brain, then the answer is no. You're not going to be free. That's not a threat of damnation. That is a fact. And it's a fact that can be proven on this planet in this material world. It can be proven by me. You get on the phone call, like, hey man, I'm going to pull up emails. I'll pull up emails I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for 12 years. I will pull up emails. I'll pull up whatever proof you want. And I get them every day from people who have been living with this into their 80s, their 90s, their 60s, their 70s, and the impact it has had from their lives. I will pull up videos. Heck, we even have recordings on the Porn Reboot podcast from people who have lived with this behavior into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they are telling you in their own voice how it had an impact on their life. No judgment. Now, When it comes to people who would use pornography, understand that there are individuals who will never have the opportunity to have sex. They never will. There are places where the population is so large, where it is so conservative and so repressed that occasional pornography use becomes a deterrent on a mass scale to prevent sexual assault, to prevent the sexual abuse of children, of girls, of boys, of women, and men. If you have not lived or visited, spent time in hugely populated countries, I'm not going to name any country myself, but I travel extensively. I travel internationally 4 or 5 times a year, and I have business interests overseas as well. I can tell you from firsthand experience that there are some very sexually repressed places on this planet. There are places that I've gone with my girl that literally I was just like, man, this is a gang of horny dudes. Like I can feel their energy just circling. It's been crazy. Maybe I'll tell those stories on some other episodes. Unfortunately, high-speed internet pornography in these communities also escalates sexual assault and so on. But in many cases, also from messages that we have received at Porn Reboot, it is the thing that has prevented men from doing so. It is also the porn use itself was the thing that made many men realize that, hey, you know what? I need to get into a monogamous, healthy sexual relationship. It became the motivation when they experienced the negative impact. There are so many men who have been propelled into something healthy by something which is unhealthy. This is the experience I have had as a coach. I also would not be here, nor would I have supported all the thousands of men that we have supported without pornography. Why would I want to eradicate something like that? It's like the people who for hundreds of years have been trying to eliminate world hunger. They've never done it. It's an egotistical thing. Hunger will exist. Famine will exist. Many things will exist. And you may eliminate them in one generation, but we are human beings and they will return in the next generation. This is the way of the world. And we must all adopt an outcome-independent mindset. This means we focus on the things we can control. We can focus on the things we can control, or we can focus on the things we can influence, or we can focus on the things that we are concerned about. And many of you who are holier than thou on your fucking high horse going like, porn is bad. It is only in your zone of concern. You are concerned about it, but you can barely do anything to influence it, let alone have the power to control it. In fact, many of you secretly cannot even control yourselves. You don't get to have the conversation about what pornography or stopping pornography. It's just your fucking opinion. And I don't have time to listen to it because I'm busy focusing on the men who are ready to control themselves. There are individuals who are born with disabilities who the only way they will experience sexual pleasure is via pornography. There are people who had a disability thrust upon them by life, an accident, something unfortunate, and it is the only way they will experience that sort of pleasure. And for us to say, no, he shouldn't. No, it's bad. Nobody should. None of us listening to this podcast, if you've listened to this and you're this far in, brother, if you think that somebody else should not be watching pornography, you are a fucking hypocrite because you have struggled with this behavior yourself. The aged, do you know how many people there are who are geriatric but are still very much sexually active? Do you know that the vast majority of old men are not really into old women? They still appreciate younger women. I'm not saying they appreciate women who are like 18, 19, 20 or anything, but many of them still do. Your faculties are still the same, but your body has grown older. Like, yes, it's very easy for us to be judgmental and say, well, your mind should have matured as well. But that's not how life plays out for many people. There are men who have been married for many years. Then they became a widower. And during that time, they were completely devoted to their partner. For the first time ever, They have no way to satisfy themselves sexually. And when they look outwards, they realize, oh, when I married my partner 40 years ago, that was where my sexual appetite for women was paused. When I was 28, when I was 32, when I was 36. And it has continued from there. I know this because of conversations I've had with clients. This is the reality. What are they to do? In their late 70s, their 80s, still capable of having an erection? I am not going to judge these men. I don't give them any recommendations except don't view high-speed internet pornography. Now, when I say that, these are men who email me. These are not clients. If you're a client and you're speaking to me, we're ending your behavior with pornography. You done watched enough. You've watched enough of it. But I'm talking about just the general population who are not men like us who had this out-of-control behavior. So, I am not anti-pornography. I am anti-high-speed internet pornography. And over the next couple of years moving forward, I am transitioning into making this a movement. I am transitioning into making a global impact. I am transitioning things to the point where one hears of another man struggling with an out-of-control behavior. He tells him, hey man, have you tried doing a porn reboot? I don't need it to be associated with my name because it was never about me. It was about me when this started, but ultimately it was about nobody going through what I went through and going through the suffering that I had to go through. That's the whole reason why my life pivoted to doing what we're doing today. And I would love it if you would support us. And you might be like, well, how can I support you? You can support this movement, the Porn Reboot movement, by talking about it, by talking more to the men and women in your life openly, by stepping past your shame and normalizing bringing this up as a problem. Because I guarantee you, there is a man or men or all the men you know struggle with this or have struggled with this. Share the podcast with them. Share the resources with them. Let them be educated. Finally, my saying that I'm not anti-pornography, if there is that voice in your head, what we call that addict subpersonality, that right now is trying to use that as an excuse for you to watch, oh, well, JK is not anti-porn. I mean, I'm technically not anti, but it's trying to manipulate you. Better cut that stuff off right now. Cut it off. This is not an excuse for you to view pornography if you are addicted. Your primary concern should be to control your behavior. And after that, the next step is to rewire your brain so that you no longer have a need for this in your life. Remember, habits first, lifestyle next, and finally, your self-image.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.